Hi, I'm Jenna Glenn, and I'm the mind behind the Mindful Educator. Today we're going to talk about the Universal Design for Learning framework. You can know exactly what differentiation is as a concept and even have tons of strategies that contribute to implementing it within your classroom and instructional planning process. However, without a framework for providing differentiated lessons and assessments in a structured way, it can be a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. George Van Horn, a universal design for learning specialist who's in Indiana, he describes using eclectic strategies gathered through reading, workshops, and talking with colleagues as random acts of excellence. They're great strategies, but they're haphazardly retrofitted often. Excellence. The upfront integration of universal design is elegant versus retrofitting, which can be clunky, disconnected, and expensive, meaning extra labor, lost opportunities, extra time. Many overwhelmed teachers get stuck in kind of a motivation loop where they procrastinate on learning a better way to integrate all of the different strategies that they learn in a variety of ways. Instead, they continue to expand the number of their strategies and apply them as random acts of excellence. They wait for inspiration to get motivated before taking action. Once they find a set of strategies that are good enough, they feel successful and thereby lose interest in digging any deeper to find out if there's a better way. I say this because I was one of those people. I was first exposed to UDL framework during my master's program in 2007. I did not begin applying it until more like 2011, so there's no judgment here. At that time, the free resources for UDL, which were provided by CAST, who still provides them, they were cumbersome and the book was too expensive with what I was spending on my classroom in those days, and because I was living in a high cost of living area, given a teacher's salary. I kept doing it the wrong way. I would plan my lesson and then I would go in and I would look for tips in their materials that I could then retrofit into my lesson plan with the hopes that that differentiation was good enough. It might have been good enough, but it wasn't great. So to break that ineffective motivation loop I talked about a moment ago, where you wait for inspiration to get motivated and then act, try flipping it around, like one of my favorite bloggers, Mark Manson, suggests. He says that we should probably take an action to find inspiration. Use that inspiration to then get motivated and use that motivation to act. So it is my hope that in the act of watching this video, you will find inspiration and thus be motivated to learn and implement the UDL framework. Universal design for learning originated from the concept of universal design in architecture. This is the concept that when you build a building, if you put in features that allow access for all types of individuals, you build a better building, right? So one aspect of universal design as it relates to architecture are sidewalk cuts, where there's a small ramp coming up from the road. While these are super helpful for people who are in wheelchairs, they also happen to be helpful for other people, such as those with strollers or with walking impairments. When you translate this into a learning environment and you think about something like closed captioning, for example, this can be very helpful for people who have a hearing impairment. But think about it. It's also very helpful for perhaps a woman or a man who have a spouse that has to sleep at a differing time, so they need quiet in the house, but she wants to watch TV. It's also good for English language learners because then they get to see the language as well as hearing it. So universal, meaning for all, design meaning very intentional, and then learning. It's learning for everyone using a very intentional process, and that's UDL. UDL was originally conceptualized by a man named Ronald Mace at North Carolina State University. In 2006, representatives from more than 24 educational and disability organizations came together and formed the National Universal Design for Learning Task Force. Their goal was to raise awareness of UDL among national, state, and local policymakers. Just a few examples of the creme de la creme that were involved are the National Education Agency, the American Federation of Teachers, and the Council for Exceptional Children. But don't get it mixed up. This is not something that you should only be listening to if you're a special educator. The UDL framework is designed to help all students learn, as you'll hear more about later. Efforts were made to include UDL in major education legislation for both K-12 and post-secondary schooling. However, the vast majority of teachers I work with within one of the largest school districts in the state of South Carolina have never even heard of it. Or if they have, they only have a vague knowledge of it or a rudimentary understanding of the principles. CAST is a nonprofit education research and development organization which is located near Boston, that provides immense amounts of resources and guidance in implementing the Universal Design for Learning framework. So let's go a little bit deeper. First of all, let's talk about what UDL is not. UDL is not a curriculum, nor is it a program. It doesn't cost any money insofar as learning about how to use it. The resources out there are vast and they're all free. In its simplest form, UDL considers the possible barriers to learning for each student that will participate in your learning experiences and systematically works to remove those barriers before the implementation of the lesson planning process and during it. It benefits all types of students: English language learners, special ed, general, even the gifted and talented or accelerated learners alike. It's based on several guidelines. It utilizes brain research around how we learn. It engages the affective network of the brain to target motivation, caring, and prioritization by providing multiple means of engagement, or the why of learning. If learners care about what they're learning and they love the way that it's happening, they will persevere through challenges, and UDL capitalizes on this. It engages the recognition network of the brain to target the presentation of content by providing multiple means of representation, or the what of learning. And lastly, it engages the strategic network of the brain to target the process of learning by providing multiple means of action and expression, or the how of learning. By doing these three things, that is, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression, we're better able to reach all the students in our diverse classrooms. This perfectly lines up with content, process, and product differentiation, if you're familiar with that. Let's go a little bit deeper into those guidelines. When we talk about providing multiple means of engagement, what we're really talking about is giving students options for recruiting their interest, sustaining effort and persistence, and using self-regulation. When we talk about providing multiple means of representation, that's where we give them options for perception, using language and symbols, and comprehension. And lastly, when we provide multiple means of action and expression, we're really giving them options for physical action, expression and communication, and the use of their executive functions. It is through these guidelines that the framework of UDL goes way beyond simple access. It offers support and challenge by considering the goals for learning as well as the methods, materials, and assessments that optimize learning for all students. In my next article, which comes out the Wednesday following the original airing of this video, we will go deeper into each of the components of UDL: engagement, representation, and action and expression, by discussing the checkpoints of each and by providing examples of what this would look like in the classroom. In addition to this, I will share details on the basic process of planning for instruction using the UDL framework with access to print materials that will guide you. Once you have the basic components in place and have practiced them repeatedly, the process will become automatic and much more efficient. So keep at it. Let's break the poor motivation loop and replace it with action. Come back on Wednesday and check out my article so that we can go deeper into that UDL process, and I can show you how it relates to the common areas of differentiation that we typically refer to as content, process, and product.